Mets look awesome. Mets have made a statement. Mets are fun to watch right now. The place is absolutely on fire. Lindor looks great. Now he's banging them from the right side, too. We know what Pete's done. Soto has yet to join the party, and the Mets still look really good. You know, I thought they'd be a playoff team for a while. Then I thought, maybe they're going to miss out by a little bit. I just didn't love the pitching. I don't know what they're doing in the lab. Hell, for all I know, they might be giving these guys PEDs. That's how good they look. But I say that, I'm obviously kidding. The Mets defense, even the little things like Taylor on the double play last night with Schwarber, the Mets are very connected right now. And the Mets are emitting fantastic chemistry, which is not always easy to identify in baseball because it's not so much a team sport. It's more individuals working as a team, if you will. I'm starting to think, Sal, and I know this is going to probably sound maybe a little early or a little irresponsible. The Mets might be a couple of weeks away from running away with this division, dude.
Yeah, I don't know about running away with the division, and I'm sensitive to that.
It's only one team.
But I'll say it this way. First of all, you know the look of a team that's got it and the potential to be a championship team when you see it. And I think the Mets have that, no question about it. Now, there's going to be questions about the pitching holding up long-term, and maybe we could do more of a deeper dive into that. Dave Lennon of Newsday wrote an excellent article on all that goes into the Mets pitching and why they've had success. So we'll get into that aspect of it. But I worry about them against the Dodgers or the Padres maybe in the postseason because we saw it peter out a little bit last year. But think about this. There's still room to grow there with Chalmania coming back, with Frankie Montas potentially coming back. At the very least, adding more depth. There's still room to grow with the lineup because Juan Soto has done basically nothing yet. Mm-hmm. We know he's going to get going. And the vibes that you see, the thing that made the Mets so successful last year was the chemistry. That was a big factor. Remember the OMG stuff, people got behind the grimace stuff, but it was the way that they were playing together as a team, winning even despite Pete Alonso having minimal impact, if at all, until the postseason. Well, now it's the same thing. This time, though, it's Juan Soto who's having minimal impact to start the year, but Lindor's on fire to start. Alonso could not be better. This is the best version of Pete Alonso. And not only the numbers, BT, you watch them play. You're right. You could see it. They're having fun. They're feeding off of the energy of the crowd and each other. Each pitcher's going out there doing their job, handing over the bullpen with the team with the chance to win the game. Bullpen's doing their job, timely hitting with the bats, moving guys over, driving guys in, some power. It's been a nice little balance here. They got a good manager who's not afraid to manage with his gut, also smart enough to use the analytics. They are a well-run, well-functioning, well-oiled machine right now. And the way that we view the Mets now in the division is far different, at least from my perspective, I think many others, than we did going into the season.
And I think even more so than last year, even when they were at their high point last year. When you start to have some success, now when you begin to replicate, although they're actually exceeding the success early on from last year, they were bad to start. Now they're really good. It's easier to believe. It's easier to accept. It just feels more real. It doesn't feel like a one-off. It doesn't feel like it's hokey or a little magical or a little, we can't quite quantify it, but it's a scrappy little group who is winning a few games. Can they keep it up? Yeah, I mean, you get the impression that they can, and I was talking about this when I came in this morning. I heard this last night on the broadcast. There's now 11 starts in a row. Now, it's not like they're going 7 or 8, but nobody is in baseball for the most part. The Mets starting pitchers have gone 11 straight games without giving up a home run. 11 straight games. Now, for context, when was the last time that happened? The last time that happened was 2014. And that's like they have a staff full of Tom Seavers every year, but that is over a decade worth of starts where you're talking about just giving your team a chance to ease into a game. I mean, I don't think we really associate baseball with pressure. Like, and in football, if you're down 21-3, think about this, Sal, early or 14-0 or 17-3, you've got to abandon the run. You got to start doing the pass. You got to start maybe sending guys more to try to get some sack. Like when you feel pressure in football, I think you kind of change the way you play. In baseball, I don't think that you do unless you are either tied or you're winning. Now you could just go about your job with no stress. And when you look up and there's, 3, 4, 5 zeros or a 1 run or a 2 spot over 5 or 6, it allows the entire lineup, even the guys who are struggling, to just ease into their job, and it is clicking, and the Mets look terrific right now.
I mean, they've got the best record in Major League Baseball. I think they're tied with the Padres, right? Yeah, best for the best record in baseball, both 17-7. The Mets are 11-1 at home, and the feeling that you get, we talk about it a lot of times with individual players, the confidence that you have in certain hitters at certain times. It feels like, now look, Zach Wheeler's pitching against the Mets today, even though he hasn't been great, still a dangerous pitcher. We know that. The Mets have already done their job, though, taking at least two of three from the Phillies, separating themselves in the NL East, to your point. I mean, they already got right now a 4-game lead, and they could send the message if you're from the Phillies perspective, think about it this way. They won the division last year. They were looking at the Mets like, a little inch in that could. Yeah, okay, gimmicky stuff. The Mets wiped them out in the divisional round in 4 games. And now taking a hammer to them early on in this season, we're off to a better start and going head-to-head with them. So the confidence that you now have in this group is that I expect them to win. I expect them to win at home. I expect them to come back if they're down. All those things are great things to say about a ball club, and there really isn't an area that you would look at and say, now, it's not to say that they can't upgrade, but like I said, they could still improve in the lineup. Nimmo's done basically nothing. Soto hasn't done anything. Alvarez, McNeil's still not here. Like, there's room to grow there. Getting Manaea back could uplift the rotation even further, but I don't know how much better you could be than what they've been right now, which is the best in baseball. I mean, think about that.
Sal's excited.
Happy Sal. They've won 6 in a row. Think of how rare it is. Now,
6 in a row for the second time this year.
Right.
They've had 2 6-game win streaks.
And this hot start, usually with the Mets, there's maybe a little turbulence along the way. This has been everything you could expect and even overcoming. Like, if I were to tell you Juan Soto to be hitting 230 at this point, you wouldn't think the Mets have the best record in baseball. No. We think, okay, maybe a little slow start, whatever. Dude, I don't think you could be any better than the New York Mets have been so far to start the year.
I think, the funny thing is, I think that they actually can be better because Viento's starting to ease into it. I think some other individuals can be better. Nimmo can certainly. I don't know if Nimmo will be better, but he could be better. So listen, you got to beat me to it. Like if I said to you, all right, Sal, you're the better person to ask as a Mets fan. 24 games in, and Soto's sitting 233. If I ask you this, say March 1st, Manaea hasn't thrown a meaningful pitch.
Right.
You used the word turbulence before. Diaz has encountered quite a bit of turbulence, even though he's navigated some tough spots, and but he still doesn't look great. He's been a little rocky in the back end. 24 games. What do you think their record is? I mean, Soto's done nothing. No Manaea back into the bullpen, and I just say back. I just mean Diaz. 11 and 13. 12 and 12.
Certainly not 10 games
There's
over
no
500.
way.
This is a Yankee-like start, and this is what goes back to it is a much bigger picture thing. The Mets had a plan. Steve Cohen took over. It took a few years to get going here and, hiring David Stearns eventually and then really putting that plan into place. But it's been a perfect storm. And now they're doing things that you expect from good clubs. This is what good teams do. Take 2 out of 3. Be good at home. Start to separate yourself early instead of digging out of an 0-5 hole the way that they had to last year and overcome a lot and barely make the playoffs. Remember, they almost missed the postseason. Comes down to the last day of the year, that extra day doubleheader against the Braves. Now, the Mets are looking like, and again, I know that it's early, but still they are looking like an easy, I shouldn't say easy, but they were looking like a 100-win team.
Well, listen, I thought the Braves would be the best team coming in. Obviously, the Braves' wretched start. They have now, like the Mets last year, maybe the Braves can overcome that.
Right.
They've lost some players. They're still a little bit banged up, but I think they're actually in last place, if I like that. I believe they're last in the NL East, right?
9 and 14.
Yeah, all right. So, listen, only 5 under was what the Mets were at one point last year. As we know, we always use that as a reference point. So not insurmountable, but certainly a very favorable trend here for the Mets. I thought the Braves would be number 1, even though the Mets beat the Phillies in the playoffs last year. I thought the Phillies were top to bottom slightly better, and I thought the Phillies would finish 2, and I thought the Mets would finish 3, comfortably 3rd, and either barely get the wild card or barely miss out. And again, I know it's early, and it's not about some ridiculous hot take here, but you have to incorporate what you've seen and now what you anticipate with Soto getting better and eventually some guys getting healthy. I don't think it's irresponsible to say that the Mets can actually win this division going away. I don't think that's nuts.
And I would think right now that now I don't know about the betting odds. Last checked yesterday, the Phillies I still think were slight favorites to win the division. But I would not be afraid of anybody in the division, and I would not be looking at the Mets as less than anybody in the division. When coming in, I think the consensus was, okay, well, it doesn't really matter about the division because we saw what happened last year. Mets are going to be a playoff team. At least that's how I felt. Get in and go do damage once you get into the postseason and kind of see how the regular season goes. But right now, I think other teams are afraid of the Mets. The Mets are putting everybody on notice. Teams are envious of what the Mets have going on. The vibes, the energy in the ballpark, the chemistry, the cohesiveness that everybody is working with together, the environment that Steve Cohen and Alex Cohen have created, I would think is envious to other players who are like, man, you're sitting out on the other side seeing the Mets having all the fun. And it's like that. And they're playing hard. You reference the Tyrone Taylor play. That's something like the Mets are just a buzzsaw right now, rolling through teams that are maybe in an early season malaise or going through the motions of 162. Not the Mets. They're playing pedal to the metal. They're trying to play as crisp as they possibly can. There's accountability there. It's It's everything that you could ask for as a fan. The only knock is that it's early. That's it. But you'd rather have this than the opposite.
Well, think about this in relation to when we talk about the Knicks, and obviously a big day for the Knicks tomorrow, and we'll jump into it crazy here on the show, BT and Sal. But it's easy to tell when the Knicks are connected and when they're not. When they're connected, ball spit into the corner. There's no stopping. There's no just pounding the ball, which was the criticism that both of us had. You more in Brunson, me more in Tibbs. But just pounding the ball, monopolizing the ball. That did not look like a team that's very connected. It's harder to identify that in baseball because the third baseman has no impact on what the right fielder does on a defensive play. Now, maybe there's a throw from the right fielder. You got to scoop it. But, play to play, it's a series of individual events. So it's harder in baseball to identify a connected team with great chemistry. But the Mets have it. It's not easy to see it, but I see it with the Mets. I see a locked-in nature right now that I think is pretty awesome, and I'll give you the play with Taylor. And they talked about this on the broadcast. So it's not that just Schwarber was asleep and he went too far to second base, which he did, and for some reason, very lazily, didn't slide, which is the complete opposite of the way the Mets are playing right now. He's half-assing it back, and Taylor's on his horse. But the way Taylor approached that baseball, Sal, if you know, and they said it on the broadcast, I think it was Ronnie, it could have been Keith, but I thought it was Ronnie. When a fielder doesn't think he can get to a ball, he kind of drops his glove. And he deked out Schwarber. That's a little thing that you're thinking about in advance. You don't just necessarily do that in the moment. So even though you have a couple of run lead and you're feeling good and you got a good record, even Taylor, who's not hitting, is locked in on every pitch. That's a good sign for the Mets.
And think about this. Taylor, not only the backup center fielder for the Mets, but a player that was specifically brought here. One of the first moves David Stearns made, making that trade with Adrian Hauser, I think it was. But he wanted Taylor. That's the type of guy that helps you win ball games. He's versatile. He's a grinder. He's a gamer. He's going to give you a good at-bat. He'll go out there and play good defense. So David Stearns identifying that type of player, then having him go out there and do the job. I'll give you another example. Brandon Nimmo, who has been clearly struggling this year. You see him on the top step of the dugout.
Cheered him on, letting him hit. Yep.
Those are examples of a team being together, feeding off of each other, good vibes, good energy, feeding off of the crowd. By the way, the results show it. 11-1 at home. That is not an accident. Lindor, his season started to turn because after the first 6 games, the first road trip, we were talking about, all right, well, going to be another slow start for Lindor.
Here we go.
It's fine. He'll be okay. But once the calendar turns to May or whatever. But no, right out of the gate, opening day at Citi Field, you could see the different energy, whether it's the My Girl song, whatever it may be. The fans encouraging him. He's trying to turn a base hit into a double right out of the gate, and the energy is different. And his season changed. And that's hitting over 300 in the month of April, whatever it may be to start the year.
I think he's right on the button. Yeah, he's 3.
So he's been on fire. Pete Alonso, Pete Alonso's never been better. This is a guy who had an all-time rookie year in 2019, had a great year in 2022. We've gone over the numbers a million times. He's never been this good. And to your point, we talked about it. The Mets still have room to grow, but the vibes could not be better with this group. The best record in baseball along with the San Diego Padres and starting to pull away. Yes, it's early, but maybe the one question mark was going to be, well, how are they going to stack up against the good teams? That was the one, their schedule's been soft, blah, 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 blah. They looked the Phillies head on, and it has been a mismatch. I don't care what the final scores say. It's been a mismatch through 2 games so far.
Boy, you broom them today. You guys are floating.
I do think there's something to it, and maybe it's me. The Cardinals series in '86 was referenced this week because it was the first time the Mets swept the Cardinals in a 4-game series since 1986. And you remember in '86, because I've watched that video a million times, even in real time as a 7-year-old, it didn't have the impact, but watching the '86, you remember that series in April, when the Mets swept the Cardinals in the height of their rivalry, that put the fork in the Cardinals in April and let them know this was the Mets division to take. And ever since then, I've always believed that it was possible to send an early season message within the division. And I'm not saying that the Mets are going to put the fork in the Phillies just yet. Look at the 2 teams, watch them play. There's one that is steamrolling the other. And at the very least, I think the Mets have sent the message to the Phillies, this division is not yours. The Braves are on notice. This division is not yours. We're not intimidated by anybody. And last year was no fluke. We're just getting started.
And that's why you have to love the fact what they've done these 2 games here. They reinforced what they did a year ago. All right, maybe you're not taking us seriously yet. All right, maybe you think we had some bells and whistles. All right, maybe you think we mascotted our way to this thing. I don't know what Philly fans would think, but I'm pretty pretty sure they thought that they were going to mop the Mets when they got into that series. They did not. The Mets advanced, and then they lost to the Dodgers, as we know. And if there was any doubt, and again, things could change. It is a very, very long season with a lot of twists and turns, some favorable, some not. But right now, the Phillies, if they thought last year was a fluke, these last couple of games, Mets have said, no, this is what we're going to be doing to you.
BT and Sal on the Fan. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires. From Connecticut to Maine, nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Greg is calling from Westchester. What's up, Greg?
Hey, very pumped up Met fan. Took the day off and heading to the game today. I want to point out something about Mendoza that's so underrated. He basically took analytics and chucked them out the window last night when he left Torrens in. Every analyst would have said, you got a lefty, Nimmo, and he likes to show confidence in these guys because you show confidence now and it pays off later. And I'm just so pumped about everything going on. I love Soto. I don't care what he's hitting. He adds a presence to the lineup. And Tyrone Taylor, just a ball player. Another guy whose stats don't matter. He's just an awesome ball player if you just watch him on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you had me everything, Greg, and enjoy the ball game today. I'm jealous you're going to go out there.
Oh, what a day.
Which should be a fun atmosphere. Beautiful day, fun atmosphere. Mets looking for the sweep of the Phillies. You had me with everything until I don't care about Soto's numbers. I mean, at some point, Juan Soto is going to get going here, and you will start to care about his numbers. I think we talked about this, BT. I'd rather have Alonso do what he's doing and Soto's struggling to start than the other way around.
Yeah, for sure.
Because so it's just a matter of time.
I agree with that.
But let's not pretend. Like, the Mets are going to need Juan Soto to be Juan Soto at some point.
I think Juan Soto's going deep today. I never call home runs. I think he's going deep today. I'm going to stick with that, but at the very least, he's got a few knocks coming.
Off a Wheeler?
Yeah, and maybe the bullpen. His at-bats were good last night.
3.5 homers on the year for Soto.
Yeah, no, I know the numbers, and I get the frustration that he's sitting in the 230s for sure to sub 800 OPS, which is not what you guys paid for, but that's not what you're going to wind up with, certainly this year. Juan Soto swings last night. He was right on a ton. First of all, his first at bat was a one-hop rocket that Bone made a great play. When I see a good pure hitter going the other way, that's when I'm like, all right, he's getting close because he's feeling good. He's letting the ball travel.
I feel like he's pulling too much.
No, but the first at bat. You see the first at bat? That was a rocket.
I listened to it on. Yeah, I understand it, but he's still pulling everything else.
Well, but it's also kind of the way they're pitching him. And that time, now they didn't double him up. He busted down the line. They could have got two. They didn't. The next at bat, he lined out to second. The next one was weak. I think it was a pretty feeble pop-up. But then even the last one, he lined up the middle where it was gloved by the pitcher. And I don't know if that's going up the middle to center field. But by the time it got to the shortstop, and I didn't check the exit velo, that thing had to be about 95 or 96 off the bat and probably does find grass if it's not knocked down by the pitcher a little bit. I think Soto's close. And I think there's an eruption coming, and I think it starts today.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
I think it starts today.
Been waiting for it. Been, 24 games so far, and he's still yet to really get going. There was also a good article in News. I'm going to give you those during the break.
Okay.
Check it out. Dave Lennon wrote a great one on the pitching, to your point.
Did he get into the laboratory? Did you like about that stuff?
Yeah, there are some good quotes about what exactly is going on there and why they've been able to have so much success. Tim Healy also wrote something about Soto being a base stealer all of a sudden. You questioned his defense.
Oh, please stop. We've got to stop the party.
His base running?
So now he's Ricky and now he's Ken Griffey Jr. out there. Stop. Let's not go nuts, Mets fans.
So Aaron Judge in right field didn't look too good yesterday.
He made the one diving play. The other one, he stumbled a little bit. He didn't make it. Yanks don't like. Last night bothered me. But right now we're talking Mets.
Little bro is up.
Mets. Yeah, okay.
Little bro is up.
Easy, Loogie.
BT and Sal, the Fan Warrior calls. We come back, 888-808-1019. Tired